Okay, so we are recording, and I'm going to basically kind of refresh a little bit about the formulas very quickly, just to mention how many formulas and functions we've learned. And then I'm going to go to the worksheet that I gave you, that I sent you, and give you, this one is not so much functions and formulas. Well, it is to a certain extent. I'm going to show you a very useful tool. If you want to, remember I told you I started by doing calendars?
Yes.
I'm going to show you how you can fill out an entire calendar with just a very few formulas. So I'm going to open up that worksheet that I sent you all, the course calendar shell. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Yes.
I see it.
See, this little course calendar shell I created for this particular, I did it for all my classes, but you see that I have it, it's an Excel spreadsheet, and it's very easy to put together. And I gave you a little empty one. You notice that this started on the 20th of September, which when our course started. And it's for the 12 weeks. So, and of course, in my usual thing, I'll have what I do each day inside each cell, but it takes less than just a few seconds to create. And it's very simple. I'm going to show you what it looks like. You know, I'm going to pull back the curtain, as it were. I'm going to hold down my control key and press my little squiggle key. Control squiggle. Okay, why is it not? Oh, I guess I have to actually be in the worksheet. That would help. There we go. So this is what it looks like behind the scene. If you remember, this is what dates look like. So this is what September 20th looks like, 44459, September 21st, etc. And do you see the pictures of yourselves on your screen?
Yes, I see them.
Minimize that you'll notice that we have the dates up here, and below you have basically the formula of how the other dates got put in there. So if you look at Monday, it says E3 plus 3. E3 is the cell that Friday is in, and you're adding 3 more days, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and that's why Monday shows up. And then you're going to use your autofill, and it's going to, your autofill after the A8 plus 1, which is this date. Okay, so I'm going to click on the empty 12-week calendar, and notice it has January and stuff in it, but there's nothing up top. So if I put in, and I have up here in the upper right-hand corner, enter the date in A3 as a month, day, 2-digit year, and then autofill to E3, and the entire 12 weeks will fill in. So to demonstrate, I'm going to click on cell and type 9/20/21. It says 20 September, because that's the date format that I wanted. Okay, as you know, that Excel has several date formats. I'm going to use my autofill to Friday. And did you see how the rest of the calendar populated? All the way down to the end of the quarter. So you could do that for 6 months. You could do that for the entire year if you wanted to. Now, this is just Monday through Friday. Of course, if it's going to be Saturday and Sunday, it would look a little different, but you get the idea.
Yes.
I'm trying to show you some of the useful ways you can use Excel. It doesn't have to even be business oriented. If I just need a calendar to put my appointment dates on or anything, this is just one that I created for me. but I just wanted to show you that you don't have to put in different, formulas in every single cell. And I use this all the time. Whatever date, if I clear this out, if I take out the first week and delete it, it's going to go back to the January thing. If let's say that, let's see, I'm trying to think when November 1st is on a Monday. If a date was on a different, what day does December 1st start? Anybody know? If I have a calendar in front of me.
Starts on Wednesday.
Okay, Wednesday. So if I put in Wednesday, 12/1/21, and I populate it to Friday, then my 12-week calendar will start on the correct day because this is the 2021 calendar. So when 2022 comes in, you just put in 2022 calendar days. So this shows that for 12 weeks from 1 December to the 12th week, it'll be 18 February. So it doesn't make any difference what day, if you're going to use the calendar year, I find it just easier to do it that way. And I use this as a template. So I thought I would just give you that as a little tool. All right, on. I want to talk about charts and graphs. So I'm going to stop my share. And I'm going to go to the Goodwill, that Goodwill site that I talked about, that I'm hoping that you are going to periodically. I know, Kathy, you say you are.
Yes.
But it's a good site to go to because there are things that I'm not going to have time to teach you because this is just a beginning course, but it's easy to follow. So I'm going to go to that and I'm going to start with a little video on charts. Okay. All right. I'm hoping that you all can hear it.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life. When working with numerical data in Excel, sometimes a chart is just what you need to show the meaning behind the numbers. In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the different types of charts and also some ways that you can customize them to best represent your data. Column charts are good all-around charts. They work with many different types of data, whereas line charts are best for showing trends over time. Pie charts are unique because they let you see your data in proportion instead of on a graph. We also have the bar chart, which is basically just a column chart turned on its side. And finally, area charts, which are similar to line charts, except the areas under the lines are filled in. In this example, I have a table of sales figures for a bookstore. They're organized by genre and month, but it's hard to see any trends without looking at the numbers one by one. A chart would make things much easier. To create a chart, select your data, including any headers that you want to use. Then go to the Insert tab and look to the commands in the Charts group. For this data, I think I'll go with something in the column category. This one looks nice and simple. Now that is a lot clearer. I can see that romance has the strongest sales, with an all-time high in February. How do I know this column is from February? Well, below the chart, there's a type of key called a legend, and this tells us what each color represents. Right now, the columns are grouped by genre, but you might prefer to see them grouped by month instead. There's an easy way to make this change. Just make sure the chart is selected, then click Switch Row Column on the Design tab. See how the chart has been rearranged? Basically, it's the same data, but the months and genres have switched places. You can always experiment with this to see which option is going to work best for your data. If you want to try a different chart altogether, click the Change Chart Type command on the far right of the tab. Then pick something else from the dialog box. I think I'll go with a line chart this time. Line charts work well for data like this. For example, we can see right away that mystery novels are starting to catch up with romance. But sci-fi and fantasy sales have stayed consistently low. If you want, you can change the chart style to give your chart a different look and feel. As you can see, you have several different options to choose from. You can also change the chart layout itself. Just go to the Quick Layout command and make a selection from the menu. Not all of these options will work well for the data in your chart. Just keep going until you find something you like. Let's go with something a little bit like this. You can make further adjustments using the Add Chart Element command or the Chart Elements shortcut. Just look for the button with the plus sign. Here, you can add or remove elements from your chart depending on your preferences. Or you can click the arrow to the right to access even more options. To edit one of your chart elements, like the chart title in this example, all you have to do is select the placeholder, then replace the text. Finally, whenever you insert a chart, it appears on the same sheet as the source data by default. If you want, you can move it to a different worksheet by following these steps. First, make sure your chart is selected, then click the Move Chart command. Next, select the sheet where you want the chart to go. In this example, we'll choose New Sheet. When you're ready, click OK. And now the chart appears in whatever location you chose. Charts are a great tool for presenting numerical data and also enhancing your worksheets in Excel. With so many options to choose from, you can achieve exactly the result you want.
Okay. Close all this. Now, she went over it fairly quickly, and I'm going to take a little more time with what she did. And that's why I gave you the worksheet. And the worksheet that I gave you was, let me get back to, it was, where's, okay. Let me just stop my share for a second. So on the sheet that I gave you, I have a much simpler little thing that we can do a chart from, if I can find it. Oh, okay. So you'll notice on the sheet that we just did our little calendar. There's a tab that says Property. So I created this one. It's a very simple one. So in this one, we have 3 regions, and we have property sales in each region for 3 years. And as you know, the chart, the whole purpose of a chart is to make your numerical data more visual, easier to understand. Now, there's nothing really hard to understand with this one, but you'd be surprised sometimes how even a simple table like this can be easier to understand if you do make it more visual. So there's really steps to creating. The first step, select the range of data. So that would be, in this case, I'm going to select everything except this title here. I can put that in later. Now, you might have noticed that there's a little box that appears at the very bottom. When you select adjacent cells, this little tool is called your quick analysis. And it tells you here to use the quick analysis tool to quickly and easily analyze your data with some of Excel's most useful tools, such as charts and color coding and formulas. So if you click on that little thing there, it'll show you that with this range of data, you can do interesting formatting. You can do charts, totals, tables, and spark lines. So we're going to click on charts. And it shows you a lot of the charts that you can use. When you hover, it's going to show you what that chart's going to look like. Okay, so let's just keep it simple. Let's go to the first one, the cluster column. It says compare values across a few categories. So if you click on that, it puts the chart on the existing worksheet. You can move it around. When you click on the border, it moves around. And you'll see a toolbar that has the options of the various different things you can do with the chart. And charting it, you can get really creative and you can get really caught up in trying to do all kinds of fancy things with it, but let's just keep it simple. So let me explain some of the parts of the chart. Now, this particular kind of chart, on the right, you'll see these three little symbols. You'll see a plus sign, little paintbrush, and a little funnel. With this plus sign is what they call the chart elements, the various different kind of chart elements that you can add to this chart. If you click on that plus, it shows you that you can change axes, axis title, and notice that when I move over it, you'll see a little box over the particular part I'm talking about. Chart title. It shows that it has a chart title. Data labels. In other words, the data that labels, in this particular case, the bars. You can have a data table beneath, which is exactly what I have on the left. Now, error bars is something new. I hadn't seen that. This must be a 29 thing. I have never seen error bars before. And the little arrow to the right will tell you the different kind of arrow bars you can have. Okay. Then you have grid lines. You can add grid lines, legends, and trend lines. If I was going to add a trend line, it would say, let's say I want to say a trend line for 2019. And it's showing me the trend that the Eastern's gone down, things of that nature. So that's the chart elements. The other area you'll find chart elements up here on the left-hand side of your ribbon. It says add chart elements. And this one will go a little more into detail. But there's more than one place to find anything in Excel. Then the button I like a lot is the second one, this one that says chart styles. Now you've got chart styles here on this little icon, and you also have chart styles here. When you click on chart styles, it shows you different ways of looking at your chart. It gives you different kind of selections and choices. So you don't have to know how to do a lot. A lot of it's done for you. You just click and find the one that meets your needs. Okay. So, and then the last one, the funnel, if you click on the funnel, it'll allow you to filter out things you don't want to see. So say that we are not interested in looking at the 2018 years. So when it says series, I can deselect that. And it won't actually apply until I go down to the apply button in the bottom left-hand corner. Then you see how it made the adjustment. Okay. So in other words, it's going to filter out what you don't want to see. If you just want to see one or two things, sometimes we have more in our charts than we anticipated. So you can filter it out. So that's what these three buttons do. Now, the other thing that she mentioned in the little video was that, like I said, there's three things you have to do. You select your data, you choose your chart, and you choose whether you want it embedded on your existing sheet or you want to move it to a separate sheet. So to move it to a separate sheet means it's going to be bigger and it's going to have its own chart sheet. Right now, it's just an object that I can move and I can keep it on this particular page. But suppose I want to do a whole lot more and I want it to be bigger for everybody to see. So you should notice that there is an area that says, trying to find it with my,
Ribbon.
it just should be moved, but these things are in the way. Okay, here we go. Okay, under chart design, you'll see a button that says move chart. So you have in your ribbon, you have your chart design tools, which we were in the beginning. And then you have your format tools where you can do a little more fancy stuff on how things look. But on the chart design, you'll see the change chart type. She showed you if you want to change chart type, you can change it to different kinds of charts if you don't like the column chart. The difference between the cluster column and the bar is basically a column chart that's horizontal. The column chart is vertical, the cluster bar is horizontal. It's the same basic data. So if you want to change that, that's how you would do it. So the third thing I was trying to talk about is moving your chart. So right now it is on this sheet. I click on the move chart button and you can keep it as an object in the existing sheet or on some other sheet if you want to move it to a different sheet, or you can make it its own sheet. And I'm going to call this sales. I'm just going to rename it. And then I'm going to click OK. And now notice that it is its own sheet. You should see at the bottom, it says sales. So this is its own sheet. It's bigger. And you still have the same options you did before. It's just that now it's a big sheet. And so you can't move the chart itself, but you can definitely manipulate the parts of the chart much easier. Okay. The other thing with this particular chart that they mentioned is that you can switch the row or column. So do that. As you notice on this one, the legend at the bottom says 2021, 2019, etc. So this is the legend. The legend is telling you what each color is all about. If I want to change that, I thought, that's not how I want to see it. You click on switch rows. Notice now that the years are grouped in the bars, and now the legend is showing us which region the colors are. So it's a matter of preference. You know, if you look at a chart and you say, this is not what I want to see. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the property sales table because that has my original data on it. Notice that the data doesn't go anywhere. The data is still there. The chart is just a visual representation of that. So if I wanted to do a pie chart, now a pie chart I find really interesting. It's a simpler chart, but if you don't know how to use it, it can be very confusing. The purpose of a pie chart is to see what portion of a whole are you looking at. So if I want to see, for example, I'm going to actually make a new column here, and I'm going to make this a total column. So I'm going to summarize all the property sales from 2018 to 2021 for the Eastern. So I'm going to use my auto sum. And I'm actually going to do that for the other two regions as well. Now, if I do a pie chart, I do not include the total. So I'm going to select, let's see if I remember correctly. I'm going to This is money. For some reason, I'm having a problem. Okay. These are the regions, Eastern, Central, and Western. And I want to include just the total. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm going to hold down my control key and select these three. And when you have data like this, because the range of cells are not next to each other, you notice I don't get that little symbol I did before. So I'm going to have to go to the insert command, click on insert, and on my ribbon, you'll see, come on, insert, there we go. There's a chart section. If you hover over the symbols there, it'll tell you what you're looking at. Pie charts, column charts, etc. Now look at the pie chart. It says use this chart type to show proportions of a whole when it's the total, when the total of your numbers is 100. So if I click on this, I'm going to try a 3D chart. It's going to look like this. This is just a very, very basic. So this shows me, you know, there's the Eastern, Central. I might want to know how much of the whole of this, let's see if I move this out of the way. How much of the whole is the Eastern? So right now I would want to see what the particular percentages are. So I would quickly just use the chart style and choose this one down here that shows me that Eastern is 37%. Now, unless you are someone who can look at numbers and tell percentages just by looking at them, which I can't, this shows me that these two regions, Central and Eastern, are pretty close. Now, if you can look at these numbers here and tell that, and then you have a very good numerical sense than most of us. And we can make all kinds of different adjustments to this. If I want to add some elements, you see there's basically 3 elements to a pie chart. It's a very simple chart. You have your chart title, you have your data labels, and you have your legend. So the data labels, it says center. Right now it's showing that my data labels are in the center. I might want it inside end, outside in, best fit, etc. Call outs. So you have a lot of options on how you format a chart. The one thing you don't want to do, and this is what a lot of people forget, they'll do something like, let's say I just wanted to look at the Eastern. I'm going to delete this chart. If I want just to do the Eastern, you don't do this. You don't select the label and include the total. If I just want to know what years, what percentages for the years, I do not click here. I click up to the total. So when I click on it like this and tell it I want a pie chart, if you see a pie chart that has, it's one part of it is half of the chart, that is including the total. And then you know you're not having the right percentages. And that's the one thing I see people mess up with pie charts. So let me just show you what I'm saying. And this 1, 2, 3, 4 is basically looking at, what's the 4th one? It's looking at this. I hope I'm not confusing you more. The thing I want you to know is when you're doing a pie chart, you're wanting to know the percentage. So you want to know the percentage of 2018, 19, and 20. Do not include the total. That's what I'm trying to point out. Okay. And one other thing I want to point out, I'm going to delete this chart again. And I'm going to go now to the, go back to the chart that they had in the video. The fiction book sales, I'm going to click on that one. One thing they didn't tell you that I thought was kind of cool, you might notice that this particular table is what we call formatted. It's formatted as a table. When you format things as a table, oftentimes, if this is a database feature, but notice these little arrows at the top here, these are filters. So if you click on it, I can sort things, smallest to largest, et cetera, by color. I can filter things out. So it has a lot of database features, which is something I would get into much later. But one thing a feature that they mentioned in one of the videos in chapter 23 on charts in the Goodwill, if you want to do that entire thing, there is another video in there talking about this particular feature, that if you format your table as we have here, let's say I want to add a category called nonfiction. First of all, let me just make a chart. So I'm going to select the data, step 1, and I'm going to choose the kind of chart that I want, step 2. So I'm going to go to charts and I'm going to go to cluster column. Okay. And let's say I want to add another group. I'm going to click here in A7 and I'm going to type nonfiction. Press tab. You see over here, that column has already shown up. Nonfiction. I'm going to add some numbers. Let's say 38. I'm just typing in some numbers. Do you see that for January, the nonfiction has appeared? So in other words, you can add data to your chart if you have it formatted as a table. So I'm just going to put in some numbers just so that we have something here. Doesn't make any difference what those numbers are. Okay. What I'm trying to point out, by the way, is that when you do that, it's reading it from this data table. In other words, if you need to make any changes, you don't try to make it on the chart itself, because this is representing the data. If I want to change a number, let's say I'm going to change, where's romance? Let's say for January for romance, I realize it's not 24, it's 34. So I'm going to change that 2 to a 3. You see how it changes. So to update your data, you simply go to where all the data, the original data chart is. It doesn't make any difference whether it's on this page or it's a chart sheet by itself. That's the neat thing about charts, is that it's dynamic. You can change it. Okay. Any questions so far? Is this going to be useful to you?
I think so.
You can have a whole lot of fun with it, believe me. I like dealing with pie charts because I like seeing percentages on things. But again, anytime you're dealing with the chart, when you go to the chart design, it gives you all kinds of options of what you can do. You can change colors. I mean, it's just amazing to do with charts.
Yes,
Someone had a question?
I wondered just how people came up. Yeah, this is Connie. I just wondered how charts were made, and now this really gives a good insight. So thank you for that.
Yeah, back in school when you did charts, they can get into some real complicated things to do with it, and they're using all kinds of complicated language. What I like about Excel's charts, because I don't know about you, when I think about charts when I was in school, it was so long ago, and I never used charts. They were always presented, and then to realize that I can do it myself without having to be into geometry and trigonometry, whatever, is that the language is very simple. For example, there's x-axes and y-axes and z-axes. I don't know what all that stuff is, to be honest with you. But if you want to know what anything is, you just click on it. And if you double click on it, it'll show up over on the right side of your screen. And again, it gives you different options of what you can do. You can fill it with colors. You can have some effects, and you can do all kinds of things. I would suggest, if you really want to play around with charts, I would encourage you to do so. You'd be surprised what you can do with charts. Now, for example, if we go to our, let's do this. Let's just take a look at our budget sheets, the ones that we did on our own budgets, and just show you how you can use it even on your budget sheet. So I'm going to stop my share and pull that up just for demonstration. Let's see, where did I put my, I think I found it. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to share. And where did it go? I just had it. I lost it again. Let me try that again. I hope everybody, I'm seeing 7 of you. I had, what, 9 people? I'm missing a couple people. While I'm looking for this, I just want to know, is everybody, did anybody have any problems with the weather that we've had recently?
Ooh, it's still ongoing.
And nobody's lost electricity or anything like that? Well, obviously you didn't, because you wouldn't be here if that was the case.
Well, mine went out, my power went out twice last night.
Twice, wow.
Just flickered enough to cause problems.
Right. And ours went out early morning, but came back on, thank goodness.
Mine flickered a couple of times before it got up.
Yeah, it was enough to start the timers doing crazy things.
Yeah, I've been hearing on the news how much trouble a lot of people are having. And if you have a house like mine, which is all electric, I hate having an all electric house, because when the electricity goes out, there's absolutely nothing you can do. And if I had at least gas, maybe I can have heat in the stove or something like that. But all electric, it's not fun. And it just lets you realize just how much you actually rely on electricity for everything. And when I had students, the thing they were more concerned about was not having internet. They didn't care about the darkness or the cold, but if they couldn't look at their phones, they were miserable. So I thought I'd rather have heat and light than I don't need my internet as much as I need those things. But anyway, okay. So I've got my net income thing out here. And if I wanted to see, for example, what percentage of my expenses, let's see, I'm going to choose, let's see, I'm going to choose rent just for 1 quarter. These 5 expenses, and want to see what proportion of these expenses are, no, I know what I need to do. I need to total. So let's do this. I'm going to, like I did before. Oh, Catherine. I'm going to auto sum. So I want to sum my rent for the year. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the same thing all the way down here. Oops. Okay. By the way, when you're doing something like this, you want to make sure you got it right. Remember I told you about the auto calculate. So if I look at January through December, and I want to make sure that it's going to add up to 56,625. If I look down at the bottom of my screen in my status bar I mentioned to you before, and I see it says sum 56,625, I know that this figure is right. And I didn't even put in a formula. I just highlighted this range. Okay, so I use it sometimes to double check. So I want to see what is the percentage of my first 5 expenses. So I'm going to select the rent through car payments, and the total of my rent and car expenses, holding down my control key so that I can, okay, try that again. Rent and car payments, hold down my control key, rent and car payments, 2 non-adjacent selections. So I'm going to have to go to my insert on my ribbon, and I'm going to click on my pie chart. I like 3D pie charts. Whoops. Something didn't happen right. What did I do here?
You have loan 1 included in your totals.
Ah, thank you. Okay, try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. There we go. So, and I'm going to no, this is the one I want. Now I'm surprised, did I miss putting in the rent? That should say rent and food, and for some reason saying 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me try that again. I'm going to delete this because I don't want it to get confusing. Oh, I see what I did. I didn't include rent, through car payment, and down to 30. There we go. That's what I did wrong. Okay, let's try this again. It keeps on missing my rent through car payment. So my legend is wrong, but it's telling me what the percentage is. I thought I had, didn't I have that? Rent through car payment. Rent through car payment. Insert pie chart. There we go. Okay. So if I want to see which percentage they are, I'm going to choose this one. So this tells me, of course, it's no surprise that 67% of my pie is rent. But I can see by percentage here what the other percentages are. So that's how you use it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So again, the whole purpose of it, and the reason why I like it, is because you are looking at a percentage of a whole. As long as you do not make the mistake to include the total, all the pieces and the total. In this case, I just used the total. If I had highlighted each month by itself, then I would have to make sure I don't include the final total of it, so I wouldn't have that my percentages off. But that's one way of doing it. I can, again, if I wanted to do, let's say, all these expenses, and I wanted to put it in a different kind of chart, such as a column chart. Again, when you see this little thing at the bottom, you do this. This is your quick analysis. When you see the quick analysis, you will always see that when you select adjacent range of cells. If you do non-adjacent, like I did with the pie chart, you won't get that, and you'll just have to go to the insert command. But if you see this, this is telling you all the things you can do with this range of cells. So if I click on charts and I want a cluster column, or let's do this one here. And if I don't like the way that looks, I might want to switch the column and row. And of course, once again, I forgot to select the the series means I forgot to select rent, etc. I just selected I selected the data, but not the labels. If you see series, that means the labels are missing. And there's a way of putting it back in there, but I don't want to get too deep into this. But anyway, that's what that means when you see series. That means you didn't select the entire chart. It's easy enough to do. I thought I had. This time I know I have. This really feels like a Monday for me. That's the one I use. There you go. Okay, and if I want to switch the rows and columns, then you see my legend has changed. Here it's the months of the 1 through 12 is the months. And oftentimes people like to have the charts on a separate sheet. I call this one expenses. So it's a bigger chart. There's quick layouts. You just find a layout that makes sense to you.
Question,
Yes.
what did you click to get the separate sheet?
When you create your chart, if you want to go back on this is your design tab. And wait a second. Your design tab, you will see move chart.
Okay, got it.
Click on move chart. You have a choice of one of two places, a new sheet, which will be big like this, or an object in a sheet. And if you have other sheets, you can put it on other sheets as well. Doesn't have to be the existing sheet, but let's put it back on budget.
Move chart, thank you.
Move chart. So again, the 3 steps in creating a chart are to select the data you want, choose the chart type that you want, and decide whether you want it to be an object that you can move around on the chart or a sheet in itself. That's the chart sheet. Okay. So what I would suggest you guys do, especially once you finish your own budget, see what data looks good. Choose a set of data to do your charts with, if that makes things easier. You can see why anytime you have financial data, if anybody has investments and stuff, you'll notice there's always charts. They give you a whole table of numbers, and then they'll always have a chart to show you, you know, the trends of your investments and things of that nature, because it's easier to read those charts than it is sometimes a table of data. Okay. The other thing she pointed out were line charts. Line charts are very useful as well because they do show trends better than I think the bar charts and the column charts. And there's some interesting charts they have put into the chart tab, but I won't go into that. So, okay. So some of the other things that I wanted to cover, going back to, I'm going to stop my share, is on having multiple worksheets. I think I touched on it briefly a couple of weeks ago, but let's do this. My coffee's getting cold. I need some to heat up my coffee. So let's move on to something different. I want to talk about how to use multiple sheets and how you can really cut down on a lot of work and how you use it. So I'm going to go again back to the Goodwill chapter on multiple worksheets, which I believe is chapter 9. So let me go there. I'm going to share my screen to, yes. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So once again, I'm going to show this very short little video, and then we will actually use their little worksheet that you will download, and we will talk about that. Okay.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
By default, when you create a new workbook in Excel, it contains one worksheet called Sheet 1. Sometimes that's all you need. But if you want, you can create additional worksheets and even customize them so you can store large amounts of data in the same workbook. As you can see, I've already made some progress creating worksheets for each month in the year. I still need one final sheet for the month of December. To quickly insert a new sheet, just click the New Sheet button, always found to the far right of your tabs. Alternatively, you can copy one of your existing worksheets. This will create a new worksheet and duplicate the contents, perfect for keeping track of my budget using the same table each month. All you have to do is right-click the worksheet you want, then choose Move or Copy from the menu. Next, check the box that says Create a Copy and identify where you want the worksheet to go. I want mine to go to the very end of the list. Click OK, and a copy will appear with the same name as the original, plus a version number. Remember, this is the worksheet I needed for the month of December, so I'm going to rename it by right-clicking the tab, then choosing Rename. When you're done, click anywhere outside of the tab to deselect it, or press Enter on your keyboard. I'm also going to update the worksheet itself. Next, I'd like to review the rest of my worksheets and make sure everything is in order. It looks like some of them need to be moved. To do this, just drag and drop the worksheet tabs into place. You can even color code your worksheets to make them easier to reference. Just right-click the tab, then go to Tab Color. The color is less noticeable when the worksheet is selected. If you select another worksheet, you'll see the color the way it was intended. Finally, if you have a worksheet you don't need anymore, you can easily remove it from your workbook. All you have to do is right-click the tab, then choose Delete. Now it looks like we're all set. When you have multiple worksheets, you can work with each one individually, or you can edit several items at a time. This can be useful if you're working with lots of data that's closely related. Let's take a look. For example, I'm planning to move in the month of September. My rent is going to go up, and I'm canceling my gym membership too. That means I need to update not only this worksheet, but also the sheets for the rest of the year. We can edit them all at once just by grouping them. Start by selecting the first sheet you want to group, then press and hold Control on your keyboard while you select the rest. Release the Control key and you'll be able to navigate and make changes to the data, changes that will apply to all the worksheets in the group. For example, if I change the rent to $775 in one worksheet, the rest of the group gets updated too. The same rule applies if I clear the row that contains my gym membership. To ungroup, just right-click one of the worksheets, then click Ungroup Sheets. Alternatively, you can click any worksheet outside of the group. Just be careful not to do that by accident. Worksheets are a great option for storing lots of data in the same workbook. And with the ability to group them, you can easily add or edit data anytime, whether you have hundreds of worksheets or just a few.
Okay. So this particular lesson, if you haven't remember how to get to it, if you just type GCF Learn Free in your browser to get to, just kind of redo it. If you can see, if you even click on GCF Learn Free or GCF Global, it'll take you to a place like this. You click on topics. And since we're doing Microsoft Office 2019, I click on that, then go to Excel. And this particular lesson, working with multiple worksheets, is in lesson 9. And what I like about this particular program is that they do give you, practice workbooks. So if you want to go there and download the practice workbook, because that's what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to slow it down a little bit and show you some other things she didn't talk about. So if I click on the practice workbook, I actually already have it open, so I'm going to go to it. It's right here. So I'm going to go to January. One of the things that I like about this, and why it's really useful, is the fact that when you group worksheets, that you know that you want the same worksheet throughout your workbook. And this particular example, let's just look at this January, the budget. So she's done January and she has her amounts here. And she actually has over here percent of income spent, which is a nice little feature here. If you click in there and remember to look in your formula bar to see that this is the result of what we call a formula. It's telling Excel, I want you to go and display what's in F12. If you look at F12, F12 shows.
Gina?
Gina, we don't see your sheet.
Oh, okay. Let me stop and bring it back. Thank you for telling me that. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, I can never tell when Excel doesn't, when it doesn't refresh. But anyway, so this is the worksheet that this lesson provides. And so again, I'm looking at the January worksheet. And this one shows the monthly expenses in this column here, the monthly income in this column here, and it has a summary. And the summary actually has a formula in it. If you look, it has a formula in it. Remember, when you see a cell and you click on it, don't just look in the cell, look in your formula bar to tell whether you're looking at a value or formula or function. So I see these are just values that were put in, and these are all values here, but in the summary sheet, I see that there is a function that's summarizing F5 through F8. And so that would be the amounts rent through other. And also they summarized the expenses, and down here, they subtracted F11 from F12. And that gave them, F12 is actually percentage. Okay. So looking at that, if I like this particular format, I can copy this And they showed you to copy it, you simply go down to the tab, right click, and choose move or copy. When you click move or copy, you have these options. Now, if you want to create a copy, it's very important that you click create a copy, because if you don't, it's going to move it. So we don't want to move it. We want to create a copy, and then we tell it where we want it to go. So we're going to click down to move to the end. Notice you can also copy to it. If you want to, you can copy the sheet to a completely new book. If you click down here, you'll see there's a new book. And if you have any other particular workbooks open, you can move it there. I oftentimes will create copies of something and I will send it to somebody. I don't want to send them the whole worksheet, just maybe one worksheet. So I will create a new book. Okay, so I'm going to create a new book. When I click OK, you see at the top it says book 1. Okay, so this is completely away from the other one. So now this one
This is book 1.
It says book 1 at the very top. You don't see the top of my worksheet. The title bar, it says book 1.
No.
The other
No.
worksheet, you don't? Okay. Do you see?
Yeah, I see that. Excel multiple sheet practice.
Okay, now I'm going to click and go to book 1. Do you see book 1 now?
No.
No.
No? Let's see if I can refresh my screen, if that will work. Okay. Let me go to book 1, then I have to share it. Book 1. Okay, you see book 1 now?
Yes.
Okay, so book 1 is completely separate from the other one. I've taken the January worksheet from the original workbook, and I've copied it to a new workbook. So this is a brand new workbook. The only sheet in it right now is the January worksheet. Okay. So if I like this, and let's say I'm going to add, as I showed you, if I want to copy this, let's make this one February, I don't have to, you don't sit there and select all this and try to copy it into another sheet. You simply right click on the existing worksheet, tell it to move or copy. In this case, you can see it says book 1, that's the existing workbook that I'm using right now. And I'm going to want to make a copy of it, move it to the end. Don't forget to create the copy. Click OK. Now it says January 2. Now this is just showing me that there are 2 worksheets and the January 2 is the second one. So I'm going to select it and type in February. So it's an exact duplicate. But now I want to change January to say February. So that it's okay. Now, let's say that my miscellaneous expenses in February are higher than the expenses in January. I'm simply going to just change that number. I'm just going to make that 550. Did you notice that when I typed in 550, my percent of income spent went up?
Your balance went down, changed.
Yes. Okay, because the way that they have this worksheet, remember the balance is going to change because when I changed the miscellaneous to 550, it changed the total expenses, which changed my income spent.
Mhm.
Okay.
Do you have, when you copied that from the Goodwill site, then you save it to your own Excel program? Is that what you?
Yeah, when you yes, I created a new book in my Excel.
Okay,
program. Yeah.
okay, thanks.
It's the same as going file, new, and
Save.
right. Now, when they talked about grouping sheets, I'm going to do this one more time. I'm going to copy February. So I'm going to move and actually, let's see, it's still, yeah, February. So I'm going to create a copy. I'm going to move it to the end and click OK. I'm going to change February to say March. Okay. And let's say in March, let's just keep it that way. Now, the nice thing about grouping, what I really like about grouping, and is that,
What about the heading?
oh, thank you. Forgot about that.
What about the year?
Still the same year. We're using, in this case, we're using 2016, but now that's a good example for grouping. If I want to change this from 2016 to 2021, this is where I would group my sheets and change it on all of them simultaneously. So to group sheets, if you click on the first one and you hold down the Shift key and click on the last one, it's selecting everything from the first through the last. Okay. If I'm going to do non-adjacent sheets, let's say I wanted to do just January and March for some strange reason, I would click on the first sheet and hold down the Control key and click on the last one. The difference between holding the Shift key and the Control key, the Shift key will select everything from the first to the last. So if I hold down the Shift key, and this is not just an Excel feature, this is a Windows feature. If I want to select a group of files from, say, A to Z, I have files named A to Z. If I click on A, hold down my Shift, and then click on Z, all 26 files will be selected. If I want to do the first, third, and the fifth, I would click on the first, hold down my Control key, click on the third, and then click on the fifth, and it's only going to select them because they're not next to each other. So if I wanted to change this to 2016 on all three sheets, I'm going to click on the first one, hold down the Shift key, and click on the last one. And now when I click on 2016 and type 2021, if I click on the March sheet, notice it's 2021, February is 2021, and January is 2021. To deselect, you can click anywhere off the tabs. Also, as she mentioned, if you want to group sheets, you can right click and you see the option that says select all sheets. It does the same thing. To ungroup, right click and tell it to ungroup. The thing to remember that when you are doing this, and I've done this myself, there's certain things that I want to change on all three sheets, and I forget there's some things that I don't, and I'll click on that other sheet and I will forget, and I'm changing everything. So just make sure that when you've got them grouped, remember that whatever you do to one sheet affects all sheets. That's an important thing to remember. But you can see how this can really help you. So, yeah, so if you're doing a whole year, and especially if you're doing budgets and things of that nature, I don't reinvent the wheel. I mean, if I like my layout and everything and the formulas and functions, then I know I can update. So let's look at February. So I'm going to delete, let's see, my rent. Let's see, what can I change? These are all, okay. So my groceries in February might be a lot higher. Let's say $4.25. Okay. And what's nice about this is as you change things, since all the formulas are the same, no matter what I do, I get to see the changes. Now, let's say that I realize that I'm going to get an increase in salary starting in April. So let's do this. Let's click on January through March, and let's copy, move to the end, create a copy, and let's change these sheets to April, May, and June. So this one's going to be April. This one's going to be May. And this one's going to be June. Oops. Didn't see that I wasn't on the tab. June. Okay. So April. May. June. So I want to change this, my salary, say my salary goes up to 3,500. I want to do this across the board. So I'm going to click on April, shift June, and change 3,500. So I can see that January and February, my income spent, percent of income is higher than it is in the last half because of my change in salary. Again, remember input versus output. Input are things that can change. Output will be updated. Okay. So the power of this, when again, when you're doing things like this, and these are very simple sheets here, what I like about it is that if you design your worksheet correctly, you'll find that these features are going to work and save you so much time and energy. And it's one reason why I really like Excel. It has features that are so much bigger time saving than other programs I've used. And that's why I started liking Excel better than I did Word. Not to say that Word is a fantastic, but if you're doing more than just, text, you'll find these particular features really useful.
Tina, you changed the groceries in 1 month to 300 and that carried over
Right.
to.
I mean, typically I would be doing these individually, each month. I'm just right now demonstrating, but yes. And again, if these things are fixed, like rent is usually fixed, power, those kind of things, but things that are variable, typically what I would do is, let's say I would take, let's see, these three, these two. So if these two are variable, I'm going to group my sheets and I'm going to delete these two. So that now in every sheet, these things are fixed. So I don't necessarily have to change these, but if these are going to be variable, I put in those new numbers in every single one of these.
Okay.
Okay. So what I know when I've done it, I always start with the first sheet that I'm going to do, and I make sure I have everything I want in it, what's fixed, what's variable, and things of that nature. And that way, I would just copy a blank sheet. I would copy, let's make January a copy for July. So I'm going to copy this sheet, and I'm going to move it to the end, make a copy, and I'm going to call this one July. So this one I would, again, let's just say I blank all of this out. Okay. If this is all, if this is all very consistent, then as things, come in, I just type it in there. What was the power? The power was 135. Okay. Well, maybe the next month that, in July, maybe I'm using it a lot. I forgot to change this to July. Got to remember that. Okay. So that's how you get that. I would do a blank one and just fill in the numbers each month and just watch how things go up. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But yeah, I do this a lot. I will create one sheet and I will just, once I have it the way I want it, I will do a group thing and update it accordingly. Now I'm going to go back to that other sheet, the one they had. And did you guys see that it changed? Did it change to Excel multiple sheet practice on your screen? It didn't.
It says book 1 Excel.
So I'm going to. Oh, I know what I had. Okay, let's go back. Okay, it should say Excel multiple sheets.
Yep.
So notice that they have an expense summary sheet. And if you look at the expense summary sheet and look where it says rent says 7,700, notice up in the formula bar, that is the result of adding everything, and it's showing you January C5 plus February C5. So if you go to January, they're taking this value, C5, and they're adding it to the C5 to this cell. So when they put it all together, when you get to the expense summary sheet, they're going to each sheet. This is telling you that in sheet January, they're looking at the value in C5 plus the value of C5 and February C5, etc. That's how they got that. So you can see these summary sheets are very valuable in that way, is that oftentimes people will have something like this. You want to see what your rent is at the end of the year, and you can just take a look at it by adding all the values, and because they're all in the same place. Notice C5, C5, C5. It makes doing summaries so much more powerful. And that's why they were able to do that chart as well. And again, even though it's not placed, notice the placement is right almost in the middle of the worksheet. And that's why they showed, oh, this would look better if I put it at the end. So you grab it with your left mouse, drag it. That little black triangle tells you where it's going to drop it. And now you have it in a better order. Okay. Now, when you have a lot of sheets, remember, you can add all kinds of sheets. One other thing I think is important for you to know, when you add a sheet and you want to delete it, if it's blank, you right click and hit delete, it deletes it. just like that. If you right click a sheet that has data on it and you click delete, thank goodness it has this little message here letting you know that if you here, you can't get this back. It will only do that if it has data on that sheet. If it's a blank one, it'll just delete it. But if it's a filled out one, don't ignore that message, okay? Don't just, you know, be glad it has that little save. Okay,
Yes.
so you say, nope, I don't want to do that. Okay.
Would the undo work?
No, when it says permanently, that's why they give you that message. They let you know that this permanently deletes this sheet, and undo will not bring it back. Yeah, so that's why they didn't tell you that. And I found that out the hard way. Okay, I found out once by deleting a sheet. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. It's gone. So I'm surprised they don't tell you that.
They did tell you that in your message.
Any other questions? Okay, are there anything that you have on your mind? By the way, I hope that you are going through the lessons in GFC, or GCF, I guess I keep on saying GFC, but the global. Because if you do go into that and you find that there are questions you have, you can bring it up for the next class, because I've changed the order of things anyway. I want to make sure this is relevant to you. So if there's something like Dorothy did before, when there was something she needed right away and we have the extra time, I'd be more than happy to go into it.
Right, thank you.
Yeah. So does anybody have any, I'm going to stop my share right now. Does anybody have, yes, Eddie?
Hey, when I call up your practice sheet, I've tried several times to get that little box on it, and it doesn't come up on my practice sheet.
What
and
little box
for-
are you referring to?
The one where you can call up the charts, you know, you highlight everything and you go, that does not show up. Also, on the sheet, it says course calendar shell, but it doesn't give me all of my options for charts and that type of thing. So
Are you working on a Mac?
no, I'm working on Excel, I mean, on the latest Windows, whatever that may be.
Wonder if it's the web version.
That might be. Now, that's a good point, Don. Those of you that might be using the OneDrive, when you open a workbook or a document from the OneDrive, it will open up an online version which doesn't have all the features. Let's see if I can demonstrate that, because that's very confusing. That confused me initially too. That's why I don't necessarily save things to the OneDrive right off the bat. Eventually I will, but let's see if I can open
But
up
when I
my,
opened it,
Is that also called the cloud? I'm sorry.
the OneDrive is in the cloud, yes.
when I opened it under Google Docs. I
Ah,
don't know if
okay,
maybe that
that's,
had something.
yeah, okay. Google Docs and the Mac versions are markedly different. They have a lot of the same features. The Google Docs, I don't use Google Docs a lot. I think it's wonderful. I mean, if you're really versed in Google Docs, there's a lot of tutorials and YouTube's and Google itself has a lot of tutorials on how to use their particular platform. For some reason, let's see if I can explain this properly. Google Docs is a totally different platform. Just like, strangely enough, Mac will use Microsoft Word, but it's a different platform. Microsoft Word or Excel on an Apple has things in different places. It has a completely different interface, and you can do the same things. You just have to know where to find them. Google Docs is a different platform. It's not as industry robust. It's more consumer oriented. Not as a consumer, we don't necessarily need all the bells and whistles of Microsoft Office. So there are platforms that are a little less robust, and Google is one of them. Not to say that it has its own features. I don't use it enough because when I do things in Excel or Word or Microsoft, I want it to look that way and act that way all the time. You put it in a different platform, it's kind of like it loses something in translation.
Should I open it up into the app sheet? Because it says open with app sheet, Google Sheets, suggested third-party apps, Lumi PDF, and then connect more apps. So
Well,
which one
again, I don't know. I'm not familiar with app sheets, but I guess what they're saying, this is as close to Microsoft Excel as they can get.
okay.
So, so let me see if I can look into my Google Drive. I mean, my OneDrive, and open something.
There's a free version of Microsoft Excel.
There's a free version, but it's, again, if it's a free version, generally it doesn't have all the bells and whistles.
Right.
There's also something called Open Office, which it's an open source, and it's pretty close for like nonprofits. When I work for a nonprofit, I use that. It's pretty close, but again, it's not Microsoft. Microsoft, of course, is protecting itself. So let me see if I open up. I'm gonna
I
open.
just opened up that app one, and I don't like it. So that is not what I would want to use.
So I'm going to see if I can open something in. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
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 Okay. I'm going to hide this sheet. So you see this sheet has a bunch of numbers. This is an old grade sheet. And if I save this on my OneDrive, so if I click on File, Save a Copy on my OneDrive, and I'm just going to save it here. And I'm just going to put some asterisks and pound signs in front of it so that I can find it easier in this folder. So this is telling me that I'm saving this file, this workbook, in the OneDrive in the CU Excel folder. It's telling me where it's going to save it. I have to always pay attention to where it's going to save it. Don't assume. And I'm going to click Save. If you made unwanted changes to the original, you can restore. Okay, I don't need to worry about that. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to close this file and try to open it again. File, close, and try to bring it back. File, open on the OneDrive in the CU
There it is.
Excel. There it is. Okay. Let's see if you can. So if I don't know if you can see on my screen, I don't know if you can see my title bar. It says in the very top, auto saves on, which means anytime I make any changes to it, it's automatically saved. I don't have to save it. It's automatically changed immediately. And my little save button has a little it's hard to really tell, but it's like a little globe, like a little internet. It shows the little disc and with what looks like a little circle. Actually, it does. It's a circle with 2 arrows. So this tells me right there that I am in the OneDrive, and only the OneDrive automatically saves things.
Saves.
So when I click File, notice it doesn't say Save As. It says Save a Copy. Okay? Doesn't have exactly the same options. Now let's see. Okay, in this particular version, what I'm trying to show is that, okay, it's not showing. It's hard to describe. When you open a file from the OneDrive, it saves a version in the Excel app or the Word app, which is not fully featured. There's usually an option that tells you that you can download it to your full version, which is always saved on your computer. If you are opening Excel on anything but a computer, if you're saving it on your tablet, your phone, some other device, it's an app, which means because the app is a smaller platform, it can't put in all the full features. So if you don't see all the features that you're used to, check to see if it is actually saving it on the OneDrive. It used to have at the top, it would say online, it would say Excel online or Word online. I noticed lately that's gone. In fact, it's really hard to tell if you're saving online until you try to, when you hit File Save, you do not see Save As, you're probably on an app. You see Save as a copy, which means it's making a copy of what's in online. That's the best way I can explain it right now because they keep on changing things. So I don't know if that confused you more or not, but I know that right now there is a Windows 11 is out. I haven't even downloaded it. My computer tells me I can download it, upgrade to Windows 11. I don't know what the features of Windows 11 are yet. I don't know if I want to do that and if it's going to cost me or how that's done. So I haven't done it because of that. You want to know anything about Microsoft Office and the things that it does? Go to the Windows website and look for it there. But Eddie, if you select a range and you don't see that little symbol, it might be because of the platform you're using isn't using the full featured Excel. That's the only thing I could assume, because you see, it's allowing me even in this. This is not the app version, but this is the full version of Excel.
Well, I thought it was just me. Thank you.
No,
That relieves me.
believe me, it's not just you. Any other questions? Okay. And I'll have to keep expressing this. You will get more out of this if you practice it.
Right.
You have to make a little time to practice it, play around with it. The one thing that's nice to know is that you can't break it. People are afraid, what happens if I do this? You can always make a copy if you're afraid you're going to mess up the original one. That way, if you blow up the copy, you still have the original one. But that's the best way. If you can take an hour out of your day or even a half hour out of your day just to look over something. If nothing else, go to the Goodwill site. They're short lessons. And if you just do one of those lessons, they don't take that long.
Okay.
Yeah, they're very short. Just do it as many as often as you can, so that you don't feel that you aren't, retaining anything. It's hard to retain all of this. It's a lot. It's different. But the more you use it, the easier it becomes second nature after a while. It's like playing the piano or speaking a language. You learned a language and you haven't used it for years and you try to come back to it, you're going to forget a lot, right? You play the piano and you don't practice your scales or whatever, you're going to forget. It's the same thing. It's a skill. You lose it if you don't use it.
Gina,
Yes.
I have a question that is sort of related. I created a worksheet and entered a lot of information because the lines will just continue. They'll receive your information. But at a certain point, I realized that I had so many rows that they would not print on the same sheet. At that point, I found out that Excel doesn't automatically go to a second sheet at some point. So what is the rule of thumb for the number of horizontal, well, the number of rows per sheet?
You have as many rows. Again, Excel's the one that determines that. Now you can tell it what you want it to look like. Let's just use this particular sheet as an example. So if of course, you realize that I have a lot of rows here. I wouldn't possibly want this to be on one sheet. But if I go to my file and go to print, you're usually going to be surprised at how it's going to print. This shows at the bottom of my screen, if you can see it, it says 1 of 28. Now,
Okay.
yeah, if I wanted to look like that, of course I don't. So what I would do, and this is one of the things about Excel, you've got to play around, you've got to keep on manipulating it to get it to look the way you want.
Okay.
So I would go back to the sheet, and at the bottom, those three little icons at the bottom, the first one is your normal view, the middle one is the page layout view, and the last one is the page break view. If you click on the page break view, you see exactly where Excel is putting the page break. Now, I don't particularly want to have it there. I can, I usually go to the page break view, and then I will go to file. Sorry, I will go to the, I can have it.
Page layout.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to the page layout. Here we go, the page layout view. Now this, if you go to, say, the print area, well, that's not the right one. If you go to this little arrow at the bottom right corner of the page setup group and click on the sheet, not the sheet tab, where is it? Yeah, this one. It says 100% normal size, and there's a print preview. That's at 100%. So if I reduce it, if I took this one, for example, and told it to fit to one page, it says fit to one page, it's going to look really ridiculous, but it's going to look something like this. Okay. So you know this is too small. It actually fit.
Right.
So you're going to have to just play around. It says it's on 3 pages. You would have to play around. Of course, I wouldn't have it at 100%. I would change it to something like, let's try.
Wouldn't you turn it to landscape?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. Again, you'd have to manipulate it, change it to landscape, and then you would tell it, let's try 50% and see what that looks like. And so now you can at least read it. So you can manipulate it. You have to manipulate it.
Okay,
So
the page, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, if you want more on, if you want the columns to be deeper or narrower, you just have to play around with it because it doesn't, I don't understand why Excel does that. Instead of what you see is what you get. With Excel, it's not the way. You have to tell it what you want it to see.
Okay, and I noticed the page break view, and I'm talking about rows. I should have said rows and not columns if I said columns. The page break was at row 17, which would be very short.
Right. So
That was
see,
an automatic page break, or what? Why did that break at 17?
again, Excel determines that. Now notice I can lengthen that. These arrows on the page break, I like the page break view because the arrows allows you to tell it where you want it to break. But if you have a whole lot of data, you're going to have to, you know, just play around with it. You
Pretty
have
much
arrows.
eyeball it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you just have to, I mean, if you have a really big one, you just have to try to figure out what you want it to look like. But
Okay.
the neat
Thank
thing
you.
is that you can preview it before you print it. Always preview it before you print it. Don't just click print. I've made that mistake, and then you might find a very small page might go to 3 pages. Excel decides we can put this on 3 pages when it very comfortably on your computer screen is 1 page. And you're thinking, why
Okay.
did it make it 3 pages?
Thank you.
Good question. And I have that on my list at the page layout. I guess I'm going to have I had a better example of it, but yeah, we can go into that more detail, which I had planned on anyway. But thank you for asking those questions because sometimes
Thank you.
I need to, again, make sure that I know what you need more than what the book just gives you. Everything breaks it down.